Welcome again. This is part 2 of our study of the book of Jeremiah and the Hebrew exegesis. And at this point, I want to talk about just a few items in the course syllabus. Hopefully, you've had an opportunity to look through the syllabus, but I'd like to just highlight a few things in terms of our learning outcomes for this course and some of the particular assignments, weekly and your overarching course assignments. So, the goals in this course are to, number one, of course, translate a number of passages in the book of Jeremiah. Obviously, with Jeremiah being the longest Hebrew text by word count in the Old Testament, a one-semester course is far too short a time to encompass the entire book. So we'll be translating selected sections, but we do want to look at the overall structure and content of the book of Jeremiah. Looking at its composition, though challenging, the outline of the book of Jeremiah will kind of reflect upon at various stages of the course, both in our introductory lectures, but also in your assignments. So I want to talk about a few of those assignments and what we'll be working through in the course. Again, you'll have almost weekly, with a couple of exceptions where the focus is on some of your research work and preparation for your final exegetical project. But you'll be doing translations of the Hebrew text and handing those in through the Blackboard format on a weekly basis. So translations, and there'll be examples that will be posted in Blackboard for you to look at as how to structure and lay out your translation. Some of you have had different intro Hebrew courses and intermediate Hebrew courses, and different professors like it different ways. But so I give you some flexibility there, but the goal is to work first toward a kind of a word by word, sometimes I call it a rote translation, and then do a more dynamic equivalent translation that makes more sense in terms of our translation from Hebrew into English. Through this course, one of the important aspects is to the study of Hebrew literary structure, to understand the broader understanding of how a Hebrew oracle, an introductory passage like we have in Jeremiah chapter 1 and so forth, and look at the layout. And so one of the projects that you'll be doing with connection to your final exegetical paper is a preliminary work on a literary rhetorical analysis. It will be due right after the spring break week, so it'll give you some extra time in there to work on that, and that will be your dedicated week coming after the spring break. I think it's due around March 27th. I'll explain that more in a future video clip. You'll have 2 book reviews, and the assignment dates are listed in the syllabus. Those are also outlined. There's an outline for doing a book review. I want you to review books that are not commentaries, but books about Jeremiah or about aspects of the literary design, various aspects of the prophetic world and the prophetic message. And so, again, choosing, and I think there are asterisked books in the bibliography from which to choose. Possibility of doing something outside that maybe even is not in the bibliography of the syllabus. And if you have a desire to do one of those for one of your 2 book reviews, let me know via email. But your major project for the course is the exegetical research paper, which is due at the end of the semester. So those are several aspects. And then, in addition to that, a small percentage, 10% of your grade, is on discussion boards. There are discussion boards kind of apportioned out, not every week, but approximately every other week, in which you to interact in. The first one, for example, that comes up is simply to introduce yourself to the class, to the professor, giving your background, and then there are other topics such as Chapter 1, which will be in our upcoming unit, chapter 1 deals with the call of Jeremiah, and I want you to reflect upon your call to ministry in light of the design and outlay and material, the content of Jeremiah's call to ministry there in chapter 1. So those are the basic assignments that we'll be looking at throughout the course as we look at different aspects of the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew language, and getting a handle on the methodology, the format, the rhetoric, how Jeremiah emphasized his messages over and over again, messages of judgment, but also, of course, messages of hope that he presents. Probably one of the most famous passages today is out of chapter 29. Even here in New Orleans, there is a ministry on our seminary radio station, Life Songs WBSN, where the model verse, the motto for the course is the future and a hope of Jeremiah chapter 29, a passage that unfortunately is often overlooked in its context. The future hope was a generation or two generations away for the people of Judah living in exile. So we'll be looking at various aspects of the history of the ancient Near East and the history of Israel and God's dealing with his people to bring them to a point of response and repentance before him, that they might walk before him in justice and righteousness.